If you clicked on this video, it's probably because you heard that VO2 max is the best predictor of how long you'll live and you want to improve it. Or maybe you know VO2 max is the ceiling for how much energy you have. So you want to make everyday things like going to a meeting, climbing upstairs, just easier. You want to make life easier. Or you heard that the only way you actually burn fat is by breathing in oxygen and burning the fat and breathing it out as CO2. So your ability to consume oxygen as measured by VO2 max is directly proportional to your ability to make it easy to get and stay lean. So you want to improve your VO2 max. So in this video, I'll explain some basic principles you can use to improve your VO2 max and the biggest pitfall that make very fit people slow down their VO2 max gains so you can avoid that pitfall. When people hear about VO2 max and they learn it has something to do with cardiorespiratory fitness, they think cardio. They want to make progress fast, so they hit things like Peloton, Orange Theory, CrossFit, and they push themselves to their limit. But that's a mistake if your goal is improving VO2 max. The big twist is going too hard in cardio will slow down your VO2 max gains. Sounds counterintuitive, right? But I'll show you what I mean with some real VO2 max data. Then I'll give you a simple blueprint you can use to make sure you're skyrocketing your VO2 max score. And ironically, it's not just more efficient, it's easier. I'm Joe, I'm a longevity athlete and coach. I boosted my VO2 max score from the 57th percentile to the 97th in about 9 months, and I've helped dozens of people do the same. VO2 max is a pillar of the longevity athlete system, and the whole point of which is to make you younger from an athletic point of view. So let's look at what VO2 max really means. One big myth is that VO2 max is about suffering through brutal cardio. And that couldn't be more far from the truth. VO2 max is how much oxygen you consume to create energy. V is for volume, O2 is for oxygen. And when you use oxygen and you master the use of oxygen, expending energy with oxygen feels effortless. Your muscles extract oxygen from your blood, which gets it from your lungs, which is pumped by your heart. And this whole system drives how efficient you are at using oxygen to make energy. When you're walking casually with no burn in your legs, you're using oxygen. That's your aerobic system. Now sprinting all out, that's using your anaerobic system and leaves you with a burning sensation. That is not using oxygen. And VO2 max strictly measures your oxygen consumption for creating energy and ignores your anaerobic system, which just uses glucose without oxygen. So to train it, we train oxygen processing, not pain tolerance. So here's a little cheat sheet you might want to screenshot with the difference between the two major energy systems. The aerobic system is measured by VO2 max. It takes oxygen in and uses it to burn either fat or glucose, a sugar. Its output or byproducts are very clean and simple. It's water, H2O, and carbon dioxide, CO2, that you simply breathe out. Your body's great at handling this. That's why it's slow, sustainable, and clean. The other side is your anaerobic system. This kicks in when your energy expenditure gets higher than your aerobic system can accommodate. It can be also referred to your anaerobic lactate system. VO2 max does not measure the use of this system. As input, it only uses glucose. Does not use fat, it does not use oxygen. It creates a ton of energy really fast, but in addition to CO2, produces a byproduct that is kind of dirty, so to speak, which is called lactate. As lactate builds up in your blood and your muscles faster than your body can process it, you start to feel pain, maybe even nausea at high levels, and it truly fatigues your muscles and forces them to shut down before lactate buildup would kill you. Now here's proof from a VO2 max test you can see of one of my clients. He is a strong guy, he runs a lot, he's extremely fit. There's nothing wrong with either his aerobic system or his anaerobic system. I'm showing you just to demonstrate what goes on when they hand off. Look at the line that says VO2. You'll see that it climbs and climbs as his energy expenditure goes up, but once that energy expenditure gets very high, it actually drops down. His breathing rate climbs very, very high, which is not having to do with the intake of oxygen at all, but rather serving to get rid of all of that carbon dioxide that is now being produced by the lactate system, which is only using sugar to produce a byproduct of energy, lactate, and carbon dioxide, and a ton of it. So that's when he gets into sort of a hyperventilation stage, and he's no longer using his aerobic system that would be measured by VO2 or VO2 max. And I'm showing you this to show you why really hard cardio misses the mark when it comes to oxygen efficiency training. Now, if you only do sprints and you go all out all the time, you will see some VO2 max gains, but they will just be very limited compared to doing proper VO2 max training. And you will fatigue and burn out and not really exercise the oxygen consumption system much at all. So if you're ready to fix this, you need to slow down to speed up your progress. Set aside between 45 to 90 minutes per workout several times a week. You want to do these mostly at a steady state where you're staying in that aerobic sweet spot. That's what we call the zone 2. For the average person, that is estimated to be around 70% of your maximum heart rate. Work to a point where your breathing is labored, not too labored. You could still hold a good conversation with somebody, but if they heard you on the phone, they could tell that you're exercising, no doubt. Then work right around there at a steady state for the full workout. Like I said, somewhere between 45 minutes and 90 minutes on the high side to really stay in that aerobic zone for as long as possible. For these types of workouts, I really like the incline treadmill because walking on flat ground for most people is really zone 0 or zone 1 and does not get them into this zone 2, which is your stretch zone for your aerobic workout. And jogging gets people past their aerobic zone into zone 3. So walking is a little bit too easy. Jogging slowly is a little bit too hard. I find walking on an incline treadmill to really hit the mark. Staying in this zone 2 allows us to train our mitochondria to continue to use oxygen and some combination of sugar and fat to produce energy. And when it does this, we can keep going and going without fatigue. Now, there is a once a week protocol that we want to add on top of this, which does exceed our aerobic threshold. We're talking a 4-minute sprint. Now, if you think of it, that sounds like a paradox. How can you sprint but sustain it for 4 minutes? Of course, the rate that you're going to pedal or run at a 4-minute sprint is going to be much slower than if you're doing a 10 or a 30-second sprint. We're looking to hit a steady state effort that we can sustain pretty even for a full 4 minutes. And what's going to happen through this process is we're going to start using only our aerobic system, and it's going to gradually max out our aerobic system before it switches over to the anaerobic system. And this process of slowly maxing out that aerobic system before it switches signals to our body to actually produce more mitochondria, not just make them more efficient, but actually do mitochondrial biogenesis, which creates more mitochondria in each muscle cell. Now that's the basic blueprint that you want to follow. Any good cardio coach will put you on something that has a lot of zone 2, will have Norwegian 4x4s as a centerpiece of your training block, but will also deploy principles of progressive overload to make sure that each week you're stepping it up bit by bit without fatiguing your system. Also deploying principles of periodization, which make sure that you're changing your workouts accordingly throughout a training block, which may be about 6 months. So just think of that zone 2 training as the main dish, and that VO2 max intervals, those 4-minute sprints, those are the dessert. And you want to have both of them in your meal. If you flip that and do mostly sprints, especially hard ones, your VO2 max gains will likely stall. You want to make sure that you're tracking your heart rate and your perceived effort. You want to start slowly and build consistency. And in just a few months, you should start to notice your energy levels all day long start to increase. And then when you go retest your VO2 max score and you see that increase in VO2 max score, you can go to calculator.longevityathlete.com and enter your new VO2 max score to see your new projected lifespan. So you can see how all that work added to your expected lifespan. So hit the like button if you're ready to train smarter, and hit subscribe if you want to see more videos on science-based tips on how to become a longevity athlete.